welcome to the Basics of Life. My name's Ken Burkey, and back by extremely popular demand is Lanise Hargett. How are you?
Great.
Lanise is she's passionate about helping us as parents be better parents,
Yes.
Child development. She's the director of our Kids Play student ministry. I don't know your exact title, but she helps all of our young people grow up.
Yes.
And you lead an amazing ministry.
Thank you.
And you always bring great topics. Sometimes they're hard topics because it's where we live. This is a topic, conflict resolution, that again, it's amazing how many things our culture doesn't do well.
Yes.
I mean, I love America. I love, being, but we either avoid conflict, we don't have the tools to navigate conflict, or on TV, it's all wrapped up in an hour.
Yes.
Those kind of things, which aren't realistic.
Right.
So you were just telling me before the show how we teach our kids to resolve conflict affects the rest of their lives and their relationships.
Yes, it does. So many times as parents and as community members, people that work with children, we always say the phrase, children are so resilient. They'll just, go with the flow. They're like rubber bands. They stretch and kind of do whatever, go with the flow. And what we know about kids is that, yes, they are resilient and they will adapt to the environment. But what we see is in adulthood, those effects catch up with children.
Right.
So today when we look at conflict resolution, we know that when they start as small children, how they are trained and how they handle conflict is going to affect them in adulthood. And it's a progression. It's not a one-time thing. It's not like I'm going to teach you one time how to address conflict. It is for sure a training that we have to do with our kids.
Yeah, and it's funny because you say, kids are resilient, but we've kind of taken advantage of that in our culture the point where we just abuse that. It won't affect them, and we're realizing, no, these important attributes and virtues affect the kid, and it affects them in their adulthood, especially in relationships.
Especially in relationships. And if we just talk a little bit about the consequences of not teaching our children conflict resolution, we are seeing in our teens an enormous amount of depression, so many substance abuse problems and issues. And what is that? That is teens that actually don't know how to manage what is going on in their life. So when we look into early childhood development and say, how did this all start? How did we get to this place where our youth are right now struggling with the negativity of their past, or basically not having the skills to move forward? What are we seeing? It's that, they managed as a small child through their conflict, but they weren't given tools to actually be able to, in a healthy way, progress in their adulthood.
I think it's interesting that depression and those types of things have a lot to do with not knowing how to navigate conflict.
Yes.
That's interesting to me.
It is, and when we look at small children, and right now with our families, how we, a lot of times our kids are traumatized, go through something incredibly hard, like for example, divorce, or something that is happening just as a normal thing in our society right now, bullying in school, different situations like that. When we go back and see how are we handling this with our small children, are we avoiding it? Are we addressing it? Are we teaching them skills and listening to them, helping them navigate through their feelings? If we're not doing that, we will for sure see that there will be consequences in their youth.
Yeah, it's a great point, because we can't avoid, there will always be bullying, there will always be, bad circumstances and things like that. So it's not about protecting our kids as much as it's helping them navigate those kind of things.
Absolutely. And if we just take some situations and examples to just start off, just so we make it super practical.
Yeah.
If we start in toddlerhood, where toddlers are playing together and they're sharing blocks. Toddlers and young children, what they so often do is they are playing alongside each other. And what they're learning is they're learning to read each other's cues. They're learning to look at the other child and read, where are you at? And it starts very early on in childhood, and you see it all through pretend play.
Right.
When you pretend play, the rules are big, because you know what? As children see, hey, you be Superman and I'll be Spider-Man, but the one child that's Spider-Man says, oh dear, you want to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They read in each other, oh, is this working? Is this not working?
I always wanted to be Batman.
You wanted to be Batman.
Yeah, just because he had a cool car. But anyway.
And so you go back into it and you see parents and caregivers and how do they handle these stressful situations for very young children. And a lot of times what we see in parents is, one, they say, you know what, you guys work it out.
Yeah.
You guys just work it out. Whoever is the strongest basically wins then. If there's a stronger child than the other one, or a bully, and I don't mean a bully in that they've been trained to be a bully, I mean that they're just stronger.
Right.
They're going to get their way. It ends up being survival of the fittest early on in childhood, which when you see that growing up, you see a very, very strong person that gets their way even though they shouldn't be getting their way. And you also can see passive children that actually just get run over all the time. Why? Because no one stepped in and said, these are the rules. This is how we do it. And I'm going to be here to help you navigate through the rules. So as parents and caregivers, if we start very early on in childhood and are participating, not letting them work it out. So for example, in the block situation, when you're fighting over blocks, so many times parents say, well, if you're not going to play nice, I'm just going to put the blocks up.
So they don't learn how to play nice.
They don't learn how to play nice.
Yeah.
You haven't taught them one thing that
Right.
if you guys scream loud enough, I'm taking it away. So what happens? Manipulation starts happening. Things start happening very quietly as they're playing, and things start getting covered up. Children learn to be silent.
Wow.
As opposed to addressing this. Nope, there's a conflict here. We're going to bring in somebody that knows how to resolve this conflict, and we know that we're going to continue to play and this conflict is going to be resolved.
And they don't even know it, but then they are receiving tools of how to.
They're receiving tools.
Yeah.
That's right. And if we start when they're very young to teach them that, to not put the toys away, to say, no, we are for sure going to work this out. And you take a little longer at the very early start of childhood. Then as they get older and older and older, when they're 3, 4, 5 pretend playing, and one wants to be Spider-Man and one wants to be it as well, you can see them learning negotiation skills. Well, how about I be Spider-Man for 15 minutes and then you be Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Because you have taught them that we're going to take turns. And that is a skill that as caregivers and parents, we give them. But we have to remember
That's good.
that we have to have a standard by which we live.
Yeah.
So many families, you know what, in many families, the strongest are the winners.
Yeah.
If you're just stronger, then you will win. And we have to kind of go back to our philosophy and our character, and where are we taking our foundational principles for our families and our communities? Where is that coming from?
Yeah, and again, biblically, the biblical model, we are trying to build community. We're building families. The strength of the community, strength of family. Everybody is honored.
Right.
Everybody is valuable.
Yes.
So you were talking about Nehemiah when he went to rebuild the wall.
Yes.
That had to take a lot of compromise. It had to take a lot of teamwork. It wasn't the strongest was going to win. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, if you look at like teamwork and compromise and exactly like rebuilding the walls, at some point somebody's doing the dirty work and somebody's just standing with a sword and watching for the bad guys. And you look at how they rebuilt the wall because the enemy was coming, and one was doing the work, one was standing, and one was watching. And there are degrees of jobs, but what did they end up doing in the end? They ended up rotating.
Right.
And so they work together in community to get the job done, knowing that at times I'm going to definitely not get my way, or I'm not going to get to do the fun stuff, and you're going to get to do the fun stuff, but eventually it will be my turn to do it. And in the end, what happens? In the end, if you look at it from just a practical point of view, we build community, we develop relationships, we're in problems together, you're never alone, you accomplish large goals. So if you can teach children those skills, just like we see throughout the Bible of how God got things done, what you see is that people were living in relationship, but they were learning and growing in problem-solving skills.
Yeah, and there's that value that everybody is valuable. The survival of the fittest is the strongest wins. There's a winner and a loser.
Yes.
In biblical conflict resolution, everybody everybody wins.
Everybody wins, and a lot of times we have to just know our roles. And as parents, I think that's where we can help our children. Is you see in, for example, team sports. There's so many times that your child isn't the best on the team. You have to know their role when they're facing situations. You have to know their role in the classroom situation. When you know that they're struggling in class or in school and they're not a great reader, what are you going to do with this conflict? How are you going to teach them to manage a conflict just in their social settings and in their daily life? It's important to teach them, you know what, this is your role and this is where you fit in. And now, yes, there will for sure be problems, but how are we going to manage it?
Well, so again, let me go back to just the problem with our culture is, too many parents think their kid is the best on the team and that they have to be the best. And so it's called team sports because everybody should have a role.
Yes.
And we need to celebrate that more.
Yes.
In that not everybody has to be the best at everything, but everybody plays an important role.
Exactly. And I think it just goes back to when you look at children's overall life and you look at it like a team. You know what? Sometimes there's a winner.
Yeah.
So within that, how do we become good winners? And you learn, and if you have good caregivers and parents, the goal is that you learn all the different ways to work within a team. How to be a good winner.
Yeah.
You know what? There is a way to be a good winner. There is a way to be the strongest person on the team.
Right.
It's with humility and not arrogance. It's to be a winner or the strongest on the team, knowing that your weaker team members have a serious place and that you couldn't win the game without them.
Right.
Even though you're the strongest on the team.
Yeah.
Those,
Well, how about how to be a good loser?
Exactly. How do you become a good loser?
Yeah, because you don't win in all things in life. So that's where depression can come in if your whole values are based on I got to win.
Absolutely. And as a loser, if you lose, or let's just not even call it a loser, let's just say you're weaker in life.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Do you go through it kicking and stomping?
Yeah.
Do you throw things? Do you get to act out? A lot of families say, yes, that is acceptable. And as families, we have to decide what our acceptable factors are. What is acceptable? And everyone's not the same.
Right.
There is a way, though, that is socially acceptable in team playing.
Yeah.
Usually throwing things as a loser isn't acceptable. It's just not. But what we see now in our culture is parents rescuing children has become acceptable.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, our children, they fail, or they're not the best, or they have conflict, for example, in school. They don't get along with their teachers. They're not getting along with their peers for different reasons that are legitimate and not legitimate. I mean, that's up to the parent to decide.
Yeah.
But how are you going to handle that? Are you going to give your children tools to deal with that? Are you going to teach them, you know what, we don't avoid conflict, we hit it head on.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you some verbal skills and communication skills to actually communicate with your peers and your teachers. What is your standard for addressing that? Or as a parent, are you just going to go in and rescue?
Yeah.
Are you going to say, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Life is hard, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rescue you and make everything better.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see it, then the teacher or someone else becomes the enemy, and so, rather than allowing our children to navigate that,
Yes.
which grows, and their maturity grows, and they have to learn that there's not always a good guy and a bad guy.
Right.
Let's work on this together.
Yes.
Communication skills are huge in this.
They're huge. And I just want to validate parents right now. It is hard in our culture right now to train children, and they're having to grow up far too early. They're being faced with difficult situations. You look right now at the breakdown of the family and divorce in small children.
Yeah.
That is a huge stressor that is forcing our young children to grow up and navigate through extremely hard situations very, very early. But guess what, guys? This is our reality. It's sad.
Yeah.
It is hard to see our kids suffer, but the reality is this is their real life, and we have to teach them to navigate through it.
Right.
And it is hard to see that, our kids, have to grow up quicker. But the quicker we give them tools to navigate through it, the better off they're going to be in their adulthood or in their teen years.
So can you just give a couple of like real practical, what can we do for our kids? I mean, as far as you were talking about communication or those kind of things.
Well, if we just talk about, and I just want to make this clear, this is an overview.
Right.
This is not a specific talk.
Right.
This isn't a specific talk. And I really want to encourage parents to do their own research, to just think about it and decide, and to look at their life and how they're doing.
Right.
So it's an overview. And I just want to say, with small children, there is a time to rescue them.
Right.
Children don't have the brain development to navigate through trauma and hard times when they're very, very early. So there is a time to rescue.
Right.
So I don't want to give the picture that this is just a blanket for every situation, because it's not.
Right.
But I do know that giving kids social skills is huge. To teach children how to manage conflict. And that is going to be up to you and your moral value system and how you view it. We at Green Valley, of course, go back to the Bible and what does God say about conflict?
Right.
We always go back to that. It's not the strongest win.
Right.
It is, we defend the weaker.
Right.
And so within small children, you have to decide that and teach them those principles. It's not just everybody gets punished, or I'm just taking the toys away.
Right.
So one is teach them. Teach them to use their words. Teach them to communicate. Don't let it, just encourage them to not be afraid of their feelings.
Right.
And what they feel is justified. Children have an amazing spirit that is placed within them that is not tainted of fear. They understand fear. And you know what? That is something to be fostered and encouraged. Yes, we do want fair. Even though life isn't going to be fair, let's talk about what's fair.
Yeah.
And within that, as caregivers, we can help them start making choices that will make life a little more fair.
It seems like the two extremes you don't want to go, which you've made really clear, is don't rescue them.
Yes.
And don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
But just so what you're really challenging in this overview is just engaging in conflict resolution. It's harder in the moment. It's easier just to rescue or to ignore it. But it's such an important part of child development.
It is, and parents, I want to tell you, the sooner you start, even if your children are older, if you will invest in paying attention to the conflict in your children's life and start teaching your children what your values are, and getting some skills on conflict resolution, listening skills, cooperation skills, just basic conflict management skills. If you will invest in your children, I will tell you the payoff is going to be huge. You think you're spending enormous amounts of time doing conflict resolutions, but as you teach them skills, they will start managing their life on their own. And the payoff, you will have more free time.
Yeah.
You will have far more free time.
Yeah, and you may be sitting, watching this show. It's never too late to work on this.
Never.
Because you may be an adult going, I need to work on my own.
Absolutely.
Because it helps marriages, it helps, workplace situations.
Yes.
It's never too late.
Never.
We see people all the time who have maybe horrible models of conflict resolution late in life, learning how to do this better.
Absolutely. It's just, there's tons of books written on it. Boundaries, conflict resolution, conflict in marriage.
Yeah.
It's definitely, as humans, something we will always have to work on because we're all, humans wanting our own way.
Yeah.
And that's the way we've been made. We want it our way.
So wrapping this up, any words of encouragement? Because I think this is great. Again, I didn't wake up today thinking about how important conflict resolution is, but it's really exactly where we live.
It is where we live. And I want to encourage parents and caregivers and just people in general that God's way of handling conflict is the best way. And we at Green Valley definitely teach basic principles of how to live, and it all affects our conflict resolution. When you just look at the fruits of the Spirit, or you look at the Proverbs and the wisdom of God and how to deal with life, what we know is that God's ways win.
Yeah.
They're superior to any of man's ways. So if you say, I'm not sure what my standard is, what do I want for my kids? Do I want the strongest to win? I don't want my kids to be passive and bullied. But I don't want them also to be so strong that they're walking all over people.
Yeah.
I want to encourage you, if you don't know what that standard is, come to church.
Yeah.
Come learn, read the Word, read God's Word, and find out what His ways are.
Yeah, and I think that, God created us to be in relationship.
Yes.
So conflict resolution really comes down to valuing that person and that relationship more than always being right.
Exactly.
And I think that if you could just sum this up, that's when relationships flourish.
Yes.
That's when life begins to make sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when you can learn that, your adulthood is going to be far easier.
Yeah.
Far easier to navigate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Lanise Hargett, she's the best. She always sets us on the right path. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us here, and we will see you next time on The Basics of Life.